The steel target stood at 3,500 meters, an impossible distance. "No human alive can hit it consistently," Colonel James Harrison declared, his voice dripping with certainty as trainees nodded in agreement. The morning sun sliced across Fort Bragg's advanced sniper training facility, illuminating dust particles hanging in the desert air. 20 elite snipers sat in neat rows before Colonel Harrison, whose campaign ribbons and combat badges created a colorful tapestry across his chest. His weather-beaten face bore the hallmarks of decades in harsh environments, and his reputation preceded him like a shadow. The most decorated sniper instructor in the program's history, Harrison had trained 3 generations of the military's deadliest long-range specialists. "Gentlemen," Harrison announced, pacing with deliberate steps that kicked up small clouds of dust, "today we separate the legends from the liars." His weathered face cracked into a smirk. "Every marksman thinks they're special until they meet the impossible." He gestured toward a distant steel plate barely visible on the mountainside, shimmering in the heat, mirage at 3,500 meters. Most of the trainees squinted, struggling to even locate the target with their naked eyes. "Physics doesn't care about your ego," he continued. "No human alive can hit that target consistently at that range. That's why we call it the humbler. But today we'll work our way up. Start building the fundamentals that separate professionals from amateurs." The trainees nodded solemnly, all except for Sergeant Ryan Carter, who sat motionless at the back, expression unreadable behind specialized ballistic sunglasses. Unlike the others who leaned forward eagerly, he maintained perfect posture, still as a statue. Where others wore standard-issue gear, his equipment showed subtle modifications, worn but meticulously maintained. In the moment between Harrison's smirk and his next breath, the target exploded into fragments. Confusion rippled through the group. They hadn't even heard a shot. 3 seconds later, the distinctive crack echoed across the valley. Harrison's face drained of color as he whispered, "She's back." Chaos erupted among the trainees. Some dropped instinctively to prone positions. Others reached for weapons, scanning for threats. Only Harrison remained still, his eyes fixed on the shattered remains of the impossible target. "Clear the range!" Captain Shaw shouted, suddenly alert. "Everyone inside the bunker now!" As the trainees scrambled toward the reinforced shelter, Ryan Carter moved with deliberate slowness, his gaze sweeping the distant ridgelines with calculated precision. From 4,000 meters away, Lieutenant Morgan Reed methodically disassembled her custom rifle. Each movement was precise, economical, practiced over thousands of repetitions in environments far more hostile than this. From a worn case with partially scratched-off military markings, she secured components of a custom-built rifle system that didn't match any standard military inventory. Her dark hair was pulled back in a tight regulation bun, and her face remained expressionless as she completed her task. Only her eyes betrayed any emotion, cold determination mixed with something deeper, something personal. 3 years earlier, Lieutenant Morgan Reed had stood tall in her dress blues, medals gleaming under fluorescent lights, as a panel of senior officers stared her down from behind a long mahogany table. The military court proceeding had the appearance of justice, but Morgan knew better. "Lieutenant Reed," General Hoffman intoned, reading from a document, "this panel finds compelling evidence that you compromised operational security during Operation Shadowfall, resulting in the deaths of 5 special operators under your command." Morgan stood rigidly at attention, face impassive, despite the rage and grief battling within her. "Your actions represent a grievous breach of trust and duty," Hoffman continued. "This panel recommends immediate dishonorable discharge and revocation of all commendations and honors." As the officers rose, Morgan remained motionless, eyes fixed on Colonel James Harrison, seated to the side, a subtle smile playing at the corners of his mouth. Their eyes met briefly, his triumphant hers promising retribution. Outside the hearing room, Morgan removed her service cap, staring at the emblem she had once worn with such pride. A hand fell on her shoulder. Master Sergeant William Old Bill Cooper, his weathered face creased with concern beneath silver hair. "This isn't over, Morgan," he said quietly. "We both know what really happened." "They took everything, Bill," Morgan replied, voice hollow. "My team, my career, my honor." "Not everything," Bill said firmly. "They didn't take your skills, they didn't take the truth, and they sure as hell didn't take your determination." Morgan looked up at the man who had been her mentor since sniper school. "They're saying I betrayed my team, Bill, that I got them killed." "And we both know that's horse shit," Bill growled. "Daniel Carter didn't die because of you, neither did the others. Someone sold them out, and it wasn't you." At the mention of Daniel's name, Morgan's composure threatened to crack. Captain Daniel "Eagle" Carter had been her second in command, her most trusted team member, and perhaps the finest soldier she'd ever known. "I made them a promise, Bill," Morgan said, her voice barely audible. "Before I left them, I promised I'd make it right." "Then do it," Bill replied. "Not with a gun, not yet. With evidence, with the truth." Morgan nodded once, decision made. "They think they've destroyed me. They've only given me nothing left to lose." In a sparse Fort Bragg barracks room, Ryan Carter sat alone on his bunk, a worn photograph in his hands. The image showed two men in combat gear, arms around each other's shoulders, desert mountains rising behind them. Ryan traced a finger over his brother's face. "I'm getting closer, Danny," he whispered. "I'm finally getting closer." He reached under his mattress and removed a sealed envelope, the paper worn from repeated handling. The last letter his brother had sent him, postmarked 3 days before Operation Shadowfall. He didn't need to read it again. Every word was burned into his memory. "If anything happens to me, don't believe the official report. Trust Lieutenant Reed. She's the real deal, and the only one I'd follow into hell itself. There's something big happening, something wrong. We found something we weren't supposed to see." Ryan carefully returned the letter to its hiding place and pulled out his tablet. He queued up the official military training schedule for the week, noting Harrison's sniper demonstration set for 0900 hours. His finger hovered over a second file, a classified personnel photo of Lieutenant Morgan Reed, the woman his brother had trusted with his life. The woman everyone else blamed for his death. The cabin nestled in the Blue Ridge Mountains looked abandoned to casual observers, weathered wood overgrown path, no vehicle in sight. Perfect operational security, just as Master Sergeant William Cooper had maintained throughout his 40-year military career. Inside the cabin told a different story. One room contained state-of-the-art communications equipment. Another held enough weapons and ammunition to equip a small platoon. The main living area was Spartan, but functional, dominated by a large tactical planning table. Bill Cooper moved with the deliberate efficiency of a man half his age as he prepared coffee. At 68, his body bore the marks of decades of service. A slight limp from Somalia, 93 burn scars on his left arm from Bosnia, and countless smaller reminders of a lifetime at war. When Morgan Reed arrived, she entered without knocking, moving directly to the planning table. "Harrison's doing a demonstration today," she said without preamble. "Standard ego trip, telling recruits about impossible shots." Bill smiled thinly. "Still using that 500-meter target to humble the newbies." "Yes," Morgan unfolded a topographical map. "Perfect opportunity to send a message." Bill studied her for a moment. You've been planning this for 3 years, Morgan. Are you sure you want to announce your presence this way? I want him afraid, Morgan replied, her voice cool and measured. I want him looking over his shoulder. I want him to feel what my team felt when they realized they'd been betrayed. Bill nodded slowly. Your shot. Your call. He moved to a locked cabinet, retrieving a weathered leather case. Use this. Morgan opened the case to reveal a custom Macmillan TAC 338 rifle with modifications visible only to the most experienced eye. I made some adjustments to the barrel harmonics, Bill explained, and the scope's been calibrated specifically for extreme long distance. You'll still need to account for Coriolis effect, spin, drift, humidity, barometric pressure, wind velocity at multiple elevations. Morgan finished with the ghost of a smile. You taught me well. Bill's weathered face softened. Your father would be proud, Morgan. John was the finest soldier I knew until I met his daughter. Morgan's expression remained neutral, but her eyes betrayed a momentary vulnerability. Lieutenant Colonel John Reed had been killed during Operation Desert Storm when Morgan was just 7 years old. His legacy had shaped every aspect of her life. The memory surfaced unbidden, her father kneeling before her on the day of his final deployment, his hands steady on her small shoulders. Morgan, he had said, his voice gentle but firm. Remember that in this life, there are 2 things no one can take from you unless you let them. Your integrity and your courage, truth and honor matter more than anything. She had carried those words through every challenge, every triumph, every mission. They had sustained her when all else was stripped away. Dad always said truth and honor matter more than anything, she said quietly to Bill. That's why I can't let this stand. Bill placed a hand on her shoulder. Then let's get to work. In the underground Tactical Operations Center beneath the training facility, Colonel James Harrison paced like a caged predator, his face flushed with controlled rage. I want every inch of those ridgelines searched, he barked at Captain Michael Shaw. Thermal imaging drone sweeps the works. Shaw nodded nervously. Sir, with all respect, that shot came from at least 500 meters. We're talking about searching thousands of acres of wilderness. I don't give a damn if we have to search the entire state, Harrison snapped. Find who took that shot. The door opened and both men straightened as General William Davidson entered. Tall, distinguished, with the quiet authority that came from decades of command, Davidson surveyed the room with calm assessment. Quite an impressive shot, Colonel, Davidson remarked, his voice deceptively casual. Hitting a target at that range requires extraordinary skill. Harrison's jaw tightened. Luck, sir. A fluke. Is it? Davidson raised an eyebrow. The call came directly from SOCOM. Seems they're rather interested in unexplained sniper fire on a secure military installation. Harrison forced his features to relax. Just a security drill, sir, testing the response protocols of the trainees. Davidson's eyes narrowed almost imperceptibly. Interesting. No such drill appears on the training schedule. Before Harrison could respond, an aide approached and whispered something in Davidson's ear. The general's expression remained impassive, but something flickered in his eyes. Carry on, Colonel, Davidson said, turning to leave. I expect a full report on this drill by 0800 tomorrow. As the door closed behind Davidson, Harrison turned to Shaw. Get me Atlas Defense on a secure line, now. Shaw paled slightly. Sir, using unsecured channels from a military installation to contact... Now, Captain, Harrison hissed, and put your best men on finding that shooter. Because if it's who I think it is, we have a serious problem. From her vantage point on the ridge, Morgan watched the flurry of activity below through high-powered optics. Military police vehicles converged on the training facility. Uniformed figures scoured the immediate perimeter. 2 helicopters launched from the nearby airfield, beginning search patterns over the surrounding terrain. She allowed herself a moment of satisfaction. The shot had achieved its purpose, creating chaos, uncertainty, and most importantly, fear. Harrison would recognize the message for what it was: a declaration, a promise. Morgan packed her equipment with practiced efficiency. By the time the search helicopters approached her position, she had already disappeared into the dense forest, leaving no trace of her presence. 3 miles away, she reached her concealed vehicle, an unremarkable gray pickup truck with North Carolina plates registered to a non-existent person. As she secured her equipment in a hidden compartment beneath the truck bed, her satellite phone vibrated. "Checkmate, secure," she answered using the predetermined code. "The shot's been fired," Bill's voice came through. "Time for Phase 2. Understood. What about our potential ally? Watching and waiting, uncertain where his loyalties lie." Morgan considered this. "His brother trusted me with his life. Let's see if that's enough." "Be careful, Morgan. Harrison won't be the only one hunting you now." "Good," Morgan replied. "Let them come. It's time they learned what it feels like to be the prey instead of the predator." Sergeant Ryan Carter deliberately separated himself from the other trainees as they were debriefed on the security incident. While his colleagues speculated wildly about enemy infiltrators and terrorist threats, Ryan quietly observed the barely concealed panic among the senior staff. Colonel Harrison had disappeared immediately after ordering everyone to the bunker. Captain Shaw was sweating profusely as he assured the trainees that everything was under control. Military police swarmed the facility with uncommon urgency for a mere training incident. During a momentary lull, Ryan slipped away toward the administration building. Using the access card he'd cloned from an unwitting administrative assistant 2 weeks earlier, he entered the deserted records room. With practiced movements, he connected a specialized device to the secured terminal. 30 seconds later, he had access to the facility's security camera feeds. He quickly located the footage from the firing range, rewinding to the moment the distant target had exploded. Frame by frame, he analyzed the video. There, a momentary flash from the distant ridgeline, almost imperceptible. He captured the image, enhanced it, and narrowed the potential firing position to a half-mile section of elevated terrain. The door handle rattled. Ryan disconnected his device with lightning speed, slipping it into his pocket as he moved to a filing cabinet, pretending to search through folders. Captain Shaw entered, eyes narrowing suspiciously. "Sergeant Carter, this area is restricted." Ryan stood at attention. "Sorry, sir. Lieutenant Brooks asked me to retrieve the ballistics data from last week's qualification rounds." Shaw studied him for a long moment. "All personnel are confined to barracks until further notice. Return there immediately." "Yes, sir." Ryan moved toward the door, maintaining a carefully neutral expression. "Carter," Shaw called after him. "You were at the back of the group today. Did you notice anything unusual before the incident?" Ryan met Shaw's gaze steadily. "No, sir. Nothing unusual at all." As he walked across the compound toward the barracks, Ryan felt the weight of hidden eyes tracking his movements. Someone was watching, probably multiple someones. He maintained his pace, showing no awareness of the surveillance. Inside his barracks room, he sat on his bunk and pulled out a dog-eared copy of The Art of War. He opened to a marked page revealing a hidden compartment containing a burner phone. 3 years of patience, of working his way into this program, of maintaining his cover. All for this moment. He sent a single text to a pre-programmed number, The first shot has been fired. The memories came unbidden as Morgan drove, fragments of Operation Shadowfall playing through her mind like a broken film. The six-person team had been carefully selected for their unique skills. Each member a specialist, each with multiple combat deployments, each trusted implicitly by the others. Their mission had seemed straightforward: extract a high-value intelligence asset from a remote compound in Eastern Europe. Morgan had studied the intelligence briefings for weeks, memorizing every detail of the terrain, the compound layout, potential hostiles' extraction routes. Nothing had been left to chance. The halo jump had gone perfectly. The team had assembled on the ground without incident, navigating 15 miles of hostile territory under cover of darkness. Every checkpoint was reached exactly on schedule, every potential complication anticipated and planned for, until they reached the compound. Instead of the expected security detail, 8 to 10 armed guards according to intelligence, they encountered a full tactical team in defensive positions. Instead of being taken by surprise, the hostiles had been waiting. Instead of a rescue mission, it was an ambush. The memory of those first shots still echoed in Morgan's mind. The impact of a round striking Captain Daniel Carter's chest plate as he pushed her out of the line of fire. The methodical way Specialist Torres had continued to provide covering fire even after taking 2 rounds to his abdomen. The cold efficiency with which Lieutenant Walsh had eliminated 3 hostiles before a sniper's bullet found his throat. Morgan's hand tightened on the steering wheel. She had dragged Walsh's body behind cover, applied a field dressing that did nothing to stop the catastrophic bleeding. She had called for emergency extraction on a radio that returned only static. She had made the decision to split the team, 3 to secure the primary exfil route, 3 to create a diversion. And she had watched from a concealed position as her 3 teammates walked into a second ambush, cut down in seconds by coordinated fire from multiple positions. With her team dead or dying, Morgan had done the only thing she could: completed the mission. She had fought her way into the compound alone, located the intelligence asset, only to discover the man already dead, his throat cut. And next to his body, a laptop containing files that made no sense at the time. Files she had memorized before destroying the computer. For 3 days, wounded and hunted, Morgan had evaded capture. Using every survival skill, every ounce of training, she had made her way to the extraction point, where Allied forces finally recovered her. The official report concluded that Morgan had compromised the mission, that her team had died due to her negligence. The files she spoke of were dismissed as hallucinations from trauma and blood loss. The intelligence asset was reported never to have existed at all. Morgan pulled her truck off the main highway onto a service road, following it for 3 miles before turning onto an unmarked dirt track. The secure safe house came into view, a modest cabin similar to Bill's, but equipped with cutting-edge security systems and multiple escape routes. As she entered, Morgan moved directly to a locked room containing her operational center. Wall-mounted screens displayed surveillance feeds, intelligence reports, and a complex network of connections centered around Atlas Defense International. 3 years of investigation had yielded results. Atlas Defense, a private military contractor with billions in government contracts. Founded by retired General Robert Westfield, a decorated Cold War veteran with connections throughout the military and intelligence communities. Among its board members, former Assistant Secretary of Defense Malcolm Pierce. Among its most valuable consultants, Colonel James Harrison. On a separate board, Morgan had assembled profiles of her fallen teammates. Captain Daniel "Eagle" Carter, demolitions expert and second-in-command. Lieutenant Jason Walsh, communications specialist. Sergeant Lisa Ramirez, intelligence analyst. Specialist Michael Torres, tactical systems expert. Corporal David Chen, medic. Below each photo, Morgan had meticulously documented their service records, their special skills, and most importantly, the truth about how they died. Not through her negligence, but because someone had sold them out. Someone had transmitted their operational plans, their exact approach route, their weapons loadout. Morgan activated a secure computer terminal and uploaded the image from her sniper scope. Harrison's face, in the moment he realized who had taken the impossible shot. The fear in his eyes, the knowledge that his reckoning had begun. Phase 1 complete, she murmured to the photos of her team. I made you a promise. I intend to keep it. General William Davidson entered his private office at Special Operations Command, dismissing his aide with a gesture. Once alone, he entered a code into a concealed panel, revealing a secure communications system independent of military networks. Davidson had spent 40 years in service to his country. From Cold War operations behind the Iron Curtain to counterterrorism missions across the globe, he had dedicated his life to protecting American interests. Along the way, he had learned that official channels were sometimes compromised, that corruption could reach the highest levels. He initiated the secure connection, speaking a single phrase when the line connected, "The eagle has returned to the nest." A moment of silence, then a modulated voice responded, "Confirmation required." The distance was 3,500 meters. The target was steel. No wind call necessary. Another pause. Identity confirmed, General. What's your assessment? She's making her move, Davidson replied. Just as we anticipated. Harrison, rattled. He's already contacted Atlas Defense. And the younger Carter, Davidson frowned slightly. Unknown factor. He's positioned himself perfectly, but his true loyalties remain unclear. We need to accelerate the timeline, the voice stated. The weapon is nearly operational. Once it's deployed, evidence becomes irrelevant. Understood. I'll make contact with Reed, provide whatever support she needs. Carefully, General. We still don't know how high this goes. Davidson's expression hardened. I served with John Reed in Desert Storm. I watched his daughter become one of our finest operators. Then I stood by while she was sacrificed to protect corrupt men. I won't fail her again. We're all committed, William. But remember, this is bigger than personal redemption. If Atlas deploys that weapon, I know what's at stake. Davidson interrupted. 3 days. Give me 3 days to let Reed's plan unfold. If she hasn't made significant progress by then, we move to Contingency Alpha. Agreed. 3 days. The connection terminated, leaving Davidson alone with his thoughts. He moved to his window, looking out over the sprawling military base below. Somewhere out there, a deadly game of cat and mouse was beginning. A game with consequences that could reshape the balance of global power. Davidson only hoped he had backed the right player. In the darkness of his office, Colonel James Harrison stared at the secure satellite phone on his desk. The call he needed to make could end his career if discovered. But failing to make it could end much more than that. He dialed, waiting through 4 encryption handshakes before the connection established. This is unexpected, the cool voice of General Robert Westfield answered. Our protocols specifically prohibit direct contact. We have a situation, Harrison replied, keeping his voice low despite the soundproofed room. Reed has resurfaced. A long silence. Explain. She made an impossible shot today. 3,500 meters, no spotter. Message received loud and clear. Interesting timing, Westfield mused. Phase 3 begins next week. The weapon moves to the deployment site in 72 hours. She knows something, Harrison insisted. Why else make her presence known now, after 3 years of silence? Perhaps to rattle you, Westfield suggested, a tactic that appears to be working admirably. Harrison fought to control his rising anger. She was your problem from the beginning. I told you eliminating her team, but leaving her alive was a mistake. A calculated risk, Westfield corrected. Killing an entire team was unfortunate but explainable. Killing an entire team plus their decorated commander would have triggered too many questions. Besides, a disgraced officer with a destroyed reputation posed no credible threat. Yet here we are, Harrison hissed. Indeed, here we are. Westfield's tone shifted to one of cold authority. Secure your facility. Accelerate the timetable. I'll send a specialized team to locate and eliminate Reed. And if she's already shared what she knows, with whom? Her former colleagues believe she got her team killed. Her superiors signed off on her disgrace. She has no allies, no resources, no credibility. Harrison wasn't convinced. There's more. General Davidson arrived personally to investigate the shooting. He asked specific questions, seemed unusually interested. This finally seemed to concern Westfield. Davidson was close with Reed's father during Desert Storm. He personally recommended Morgan Reed for special operations training. These are not coincidences. You believe he's working with Reed? I believe in eliminating variables, Westfield replied coldly. Activate our contingency within Davidson's security detail. I want all his communications monitored, all movements tracked. And if confirmed, Westfield's expression remained impassive. Then Davidson joins our list of problems to solve permanently. After ending the call, Harrison remained at his desk, a gnawing uneasiness growing in his gut. He had faced death many times across multiple combat zones. He had eliminated high-value targets with cold precision. He had betrayed his oath, his country, and his fellow soldiers for power and profit. But something about Morgan Reed's calculated shot, about the message it sent, left him deeply unsettled. It wasn't just a demonstration of skill, it was a promise, a declaration of intent. Harrison opened his desk drawer, removing a classified file marked Operation Kingfisher. The mission Reed's team had completed 1 month before Shadowfall, the mission that had sealed their fate. Inside were surveillance photos of a remote facility in Belarus. Thermal imaging showing unusual power consumption. Radiation signatures indicating materials that shouldn't exist outside secured government facilities. And most damning of all, photographs of himself meeting with known arms dealers just outside the facility perimeter. If Reed had somehow obtained copies of these files, if she had spent 3 years gathering evidence instead of simply seeking revenge, Harrison closed the file, returning it to its hiding place. For the first time in years, Colonel James Harrison felt genuine fear. As night fell over the Blue Ridge Mountains, Morgan Reed prepared for the next phase of her operation. She spread topographical maps across a table, marking key locations with colored pins. The red pin, Atlas Defense Headquarters in Northern Virginia. The blue pins, known residences of key Atlas executives and board members. The black pin, a remote facility in the Appalachian Mountains officially designated as a private research center. The yellow pin, Fort Bragg, where it had all begun. 3 years of meticulous investigation had revealed the connections between these locations. 3 years of hacking secured networks, intercepting communications, and cultivating sources within Atlas itself. Morgan's satellite phone vibrated. "Checkmate secure," she answered. "He took the bait," Bill's gravelly voice came through. "Harrison contacted Westfield immediately after your shot. They're accelerating their timetable. The weapon? In 72 hours, according to our source. Earlier than we anticipated." Morgan studied the map thoughtfully. "That changes things. We need to move faster. What about the younger Carter? Have you made contact? Not yet. I need to be certain of his loyalties first. Time's running short, Morgan. I know. She traced a finger along the route between her current location and Fort Bragg. Tomorrow I approach Carter. If he's truly his brother's keeper, we'll have our inside man. If not, Bill finished her thought. If not, we proceed with contingency plans. Exactly. Morgan's gaze drifted to the photos of her team. One way or another, we expose the truth about Shadowfall. We reveal what Atlas is planning, and we make damn sure everyone responsible faces justice. Be careful, Morgan. Westfield didn't become who he is by being careless. If he's accelerating the timetable, he's also sending hunters. Morgan's expression hardened. Let them come. This time, I'll be ready. As darkness settled over the mountains, Lieutenant Morgan Reed continued her preparations, checking weapons, memorizing routes, reviewing intelligence. The impossible shot had been just the beginning. The real battle was about to begin. A battle for truth. A battle for justice. A battle to honor the promise she had made to 5 operators who trusted her with their lives. A promise she intended to keep, no matter the cost. Dawn broke over the Blue Ridge Mountains in hues of amber and gold, casting long shadows across the rugged terrain. Morgan Reed had been awake for hours preparing. 3 years of meticulous planning were accelerating now, compressed into 72 critical hours. The weapons movement had changed everything. The cabin's main room had transformed into a war room overnight. Tactical maps covered the walls. Surveillance photos of Atlas defense facilities were arranged in precise order. Dossiers on key personnel lay open on the central table. Morgan moved between them with quiet efficiency, memorizing details, identifying vulnerabilities, refining strategy. At precisely 0600, the satellite phone vibrated. Checkmate secure, Morgan answered. We have movement at Atlas headquarters. Bill Cooper's gravelly voice reported. 4 unmarked SUVs departed at 0530. Tactical team configuration. Morgan's expression remained neutral, but her eyes hardened. Direction. Southwest, consistent with route to Fort Bragg. Hunters, Morgan concluded, earlier than expected. Westfield's not taking chances, not after your little demonstration yesterday. Morgan studied the regional map, calculating intercept possibilities. What about our potential friend? Carter left barracks at 0500 for scheduled PT, took an unusual route through the eastern perimeter. Surveillance is minimal there. He's creating an opportunity, Morgan said. Time to find out whose side he's on. Be careful, Morgan. If he's compromised, I know the risks. Morgan traced a route on the map. Keep eyes on those Atlas teams. I need to know if they're hunting me or focused on securing the weapon. Understood. Cooper out. Morgan moved to a locked cabinet retrieving field gear designed for invisibility. Not the digital camouflage of modern military, but the earthen tones favored by experienced hunters. Every item selected with purpose. Nothing unnecessary. Nothing that could compromise stealth or mobility. At the weapons locker, she paused. The moment required balance. Enough firepower for security without sacrificing speed. She selected a suppressed Sig Sauer P226 sidearm and a compact Heckler & Koch MP7, a personal defense weapon that offered substantial firepower in a minimal profile. As she prepared to depart, Morgan paused before the wall of photos, the 5 faces that had driven her mission for 3 years, her team, her responsibility. Almost there, she whispered. Almost there. Sergeant Ryan Carter maintained precise form as he completed his 20th pull-up on the outdoor training bar. His breathing remained controlled, his movements mechanical. To casual observers, and he knew there were several watching, he appeared focused solely on physical training. In reality, his attention was divided between his exercise routine and systematic surveillance of his surroundings. The eastern perimeter of Fort Bragg's advanced training sector featured dense woodland that pressed close to the fence line. The morning PT route he'd selected offered multiple blind spots in the base's camera coverage. An invitation, a declaration of intent. After completing his pull-ups, Ryan dropped to the ground and began a series of mountain climbers, positioning himself to observe the tree line without obvious attention. Nothing. No movement. No signal. Had he misunderstood? Had the shooter, the woman he believed to be Lieutenant Reed, missed his message? Ryan completed his exercise and moved to a water station, using the moment to scan his surroundings once more. The hair on the back of his neck prickled. Someone was watching. Not the obvious surveillance from base security, but something else. Something more focused. He began his cool-down routine, stretching methodically while moving gradually closer to the perimeter fence. As he reached down to touch his toes, a small stone landed precisely 3 feet to his left. Not a random occurrence. A signal. Ryan completed his stretches, then began a slow jog that took him alongside the fence, passing through a blind spot in the camera coverage. As he entered the surveillance gap, a voice spoke from the dense foliage beyond the fence. "Your brother died with honor, Sergeant Carter, not because of my negligence." Ryan didn't break stride, didn't turn his head. "Prove it," he said quietly. "The night before Shadowfall, Daniel encrypted an intelligence package. He told me if anything happened, the decryption key was something only his brother would know." Ryan's heart pounded, but his pace remained steady. "What was the package?" "Evidence from Operation Kingfisher, the real reason your brother and his teammates were targeted." "And the key?" Ryan asked, maintaining his casual jogging pace. "That's why I need you. Daniel said you'd know. Something from your childhood. Something about eagles." Ryan nearly stumbled. The reference struck him like a physical blow. Eagle, his brother's call sign, chosen for a specific reason known only to the two of them. "Meet me. Prove what you're saying." Ryan's voice remained low, steady, despite the emotions churning beneath. 3 miles east of the main gate. The abandoned fire tower. 2100 hours tonight. Ryan completed his circuit, the voice from the woods falling silent as he re-entered the camera's field of view. His expression revealed nothing of the turmoil within, nothing of the decision weighing on him. Tonight, he would either find the truth about his brother's death or walk into a trap set by the woman blamed for killing him. Colonel James Harrison surveyed the Tactical Operations Center with growing unease. The 4 monitors on the main wall displayed surveillance feeds from across the base. Security teams reported in at 15-minute intervals. Drone footage of the surrounding terrain updated in real time. Still, Harrison couldn't shake the sensation of vulnerability of being watched. The impossible shot had accomplished its purpose. Psychological warfare at its finest. "Sir," Captain Shaw approached, tablet in hand. "We've completed review of all personnel movements since the incident. Nothing unusual except—" "Except what?" Harrison snapped. "Sergeant Carter's morning PT route deviated from standard patterns. He spent approximately 3 minutes in a surveillance blind spot near the eastern perimeter." Harrison's eyes narrowed. "Carter, Daniel Carter's brother." "Yes, sir. He transferred to the program 3 months ago. Exemplary record. Top of his class in—" "I know who he is, Captain." Harrison studied the personnel file on the tablet. "The question is, why he's here." "His transfer paperwork indicates a desire to follow his brother's career path." "Or to investigate his brother's death," Harrison muttered. Increase surveillance on Carter. Discreetly. I want to know everywhere he goes, everyone he talks to. Sir, without cause, authorizing surveillance on military personnel requires— I'm giving you cause, Captain, Harrison interrupted coldly. National security. That's all you need to know. Shaw hesitated, then nodded. Yes, sir. As Shaw departed, Harrison's secure phone vibrated. Perimeter breach, a modulated voice reported. East sector. Fence sensors detected momentary disruption consistent with human passage. Camera 12, non-responsive. Harrison's jaw tightened. Deploy Tactical Team 3. Quiet containment. No radio chatter. Understood. Harrison ended the call, his mind racing through possibilities. If Reed had breached the perimeter, if she had made contact with someone inside, perhaps Carter, the situation was deteriorating faster than anticipated. He unlocked a secure drawer and removed a satellite phone different from the one he'd used previously. This connection bypassed all standard military communications networks, utilizing a proprietary encryption system developed by Atlas Defense. The asset is compromised, he stated when the connection established. Accelerate extraction to today, 1800 hours. Confirmed, the voice on the other end responded. Containment team ETA 20 minutes. Harrison replaced the phone, his decision made. The weapon would move today, not in 72 hours. And if Morgan Reed interfered, the containment team would ensure she joined her former teammates in permanent silence. In the heart of Washington, D.C., the headquarters of Atlas Defense International projected power and legitimacy. The gleaming 12-story building featured cutting-edge security systems, a lobby displaying prestigious defense contracts, and executive offices with views of the Capitol Dome. Behind these impressive facades lay the true nature of the organization, one that had evolved from legitimate defense contractor to something far more dangerous. On the top floor, General Robert Westfield stood before a wall of monitors, hands clasped behind his back, expression impassive as he absorbed the latest reports. At 68, Westfield remained imposing, tall, broad-shouldered with steel-gray hair cut to military precision and eyes that revealed nothing of his thoughts. The containment team will reach Fort Bragg within 15 minutes, his chief of security reported. Harrison is accelerating the weapons extraction to 1800 hours today. Westfield nodded almost imperceptibly. And our asset within NSA, Deputy Director Pierce, has scrubbed all satellite coverage of the transport route. Official records will show routine vehicle movements only. The facility, prepared to receive and deploy. Final testing completed at 0400 hours. The system performs beyond specifications. Westfield allowed himself a small smile. 3 years of work. Billions in development. The most advanced chemical weapons delivery system ever created. Untraceable, deniable, and devastatingly effective. Once deployed, it would reshape global security paradigms. More importantly, it would make Atlas Defense the most valuable military contractor in history. His security chief interjected, "There's one additional concern, General Davidson." Westfield's expression cooled. Explain. He's requesting access to Colonel Harrison's communication logs for the past 3 years, citing a security review of all SOCOM training facilities. Denied, of course. The request came through official channels with appropriate authorization. Pierce delayed, but couldn't block without raising suspicions. Westfield turned from the monitors, his gaze hardening. William Davidson was John Reed's commanding officer in Desert Storm. He personally recommended Morgan Reed for special operations training. These are not coincidences. You believe he's working with Reed. I believe in eliminating variables, Westfield replied coldly. Activate our contingency within Davidson's security detail. I want all his communications monitored, all movements tracked. And if confirmed, Westfield's expression remained impassive. Then Davidson joins our list of problems to solve permanently. As his security chief departed, Westfield moved to his private office. A wall safe, concealed behind an original Remington painting, contained documents never intended for digital storage. He removed a single file labeled Kingfisher and spread its contents across his desk. Surveillance photos showed a younger Morgan Reed leading her team through complex terrain. Intercepted communications detailed their discovery of the prototype chemical weapon during what should have been a routine border monitoring mission. Most damning of all, recorded conversations between Reed and her superiors expressing concerns about unusual activities at a supposedly abandoned research facility. Another document, yellowed with age but preserved in a protective sleeve, caught his attention. A mission report from Desert Storm bearing the signature of Lieutenant Colonel John Reed. The report that had nearly ended Westfield's career 15 years earlier, when Reed had documented Westfield's unauthorized operation and civilian casualties. The report that Westfield had managed to bury, but only after ensuring that John Reed would never return from his next mission. Like father, like daughter. Both possessing that same irritating moral certainty. Both unwilling to understand the necessities of power. Westfield gathered the documents, feeding them into a specialized shredder that reduced them to unrecoverable particles. The digital records had been purged years ago. These physical copies were the last tangible evidence connecting Atlas to the events preceding Operation Shadowfall. With the evidence destroyed, Westfield allowed himself a moment of reflection. Morgan Reed had proven more resilient than anticipated, more dangerous, but she remained an isolated threat, discredited, officially disgraced, without institutional support. Or so he believed. Laura Mitchell had spent 15 years as an intelligence analyst for the CIA before asking the wrong questions about the wrong operation. Her reward reassignment to administrative duties, security clearance, restrictions, and eventually a voluntary resignation. For 3 years she had used her considerable skills in the private sector, analyzing financial data for a consulting firm, safe, lucrative, and mind-numbingly boring. Until Morgan Reed had appeared in her life 6 months ago with evidence of the very operation that had ended Laura's CIA career. Now Laura sat in her Washington apartment, surrounded by specialized equipment that would result in multiple federal charges if discovered. 6 monitors displayed various data streams, intercepted communications, financial transactions, personnel, movements, satellite imagery. Her fingers moved across multiple keyboards, bypassing security protocols she herself had helped design during her agency days. The irony wasn't lost on her. "Got you," she whispered, as encryption keys unlocked a secure server. Atlas Defense's internal scheduling system appeared on her center monitor. Laura immediately identified the anomaly. A transport operation scheduled for 1800 hours accelerated from its original date 3 days later. The manifest listed research equipment with a security classification above top secret. She captured the data, sending it through a bounced connection to Morgan's secure communications system. As she prepared to exit the server, a secondary alert flashed on another monitor. Someone else was accessing the same systems, someone with high-level clearance. Laura initiated her emergency protocols, disguising her presence, while maintaining access long enough to identify the second intruder. The digital signature appeared familiar. Methodical, precise, leaving minimal trace. Recognition dawned. She knew this approach, had trained alongside its user. Laura opened a secure chat window, typing rapidly, "Hello, Davidson. Fancy meeting you here?" A pause, then a response. "Mitchell, thought you retired." Similar rumors about you. Yet, here we are. Another pause. Reed can't confirm or deny. But if I were working with her, I'd tell her that Atlas moved the timetable. Today, 1800. Already aware, mobilizing resources. Be careful. Westfield has eyes everywhere. Too late for caution. 3 years too late. The connection terminated as both parties withdrew from the system, digital ghosts vanishing back into the ether. Laura immediately began packing essential equipment. Her cover was potentially compromised. Standard protocols dictated immediate relocation. As she worked, Laura allowed herself a grim smile. The old network was reactivating. Former colleagues who had questioned Atlas operations, who had seen patterns others missed, who had been silenced through reassignment, forced retirement, or worse. Morgan Reed had become a catalyst, bringing together scattered individuals into something more dangerous, a team with purpose skills and righteous anger. The abandoned fire tower stood like a skeletal sentinel amidst towering pines, its weathered frame silhouetted against the darkening sky. 3 miles east of Fort Bragg's main gate, the location offered clear sight lines in all directions while providing multiple escape routes through dense forest. Morgan Reed arrived 2 hours early, methodically securing the area. Motion sensors placed at strategic intervals, tripwires along likely approach paths, observation posts established to monitor potential ambush positions. Not that she expected betrayal from Ryan Carter. Her instincts suggested he genuinely sought truth about his brother's death. But 3 years of hunted existence had taught Morgan to prepare for every contingency. As darkness settled over the forest, Morgan positioned herself on the tower's second level, high enough for tactical advantage, low enough for quick extraction if necessary. Her MP7 rested within immediate reach. The suppressed P-226 remained holstered at her side. At precisely 20:55, her perimeter sensors activated in sequence, a single individual approaching from the west following the most direct route from the base. No accompanying signals, no secondary triggers. Either Carter had come alone as promised, or he was followed by professionals skilled enough to avoid basic countermeasures. Morgan observed through night vision optics as Ryan Carter emerged from the tree line, moving with the measured confidence of special operations training. He paused at the tower's base, scanning his surroundings before speaking. "I came alone," he stated, voice carrying in the still night air. "Despite multiple opportunities for backup." Morgan appreciated the directness. "Third level. Ladders secure." Ryan climbed steadily, emerging onto the platform where Morgan waited. In the green glow of night vision, their faces appeared ghostly, otherworldly. "You're taking a significant risk," Morgan observed, maintaining tactical distance. "My brother trusted you," Ryan replied simply. "That buys you 5 minutes. Convince me." Morgan activated a small tablet, turning it toward Ryan. "Operation Kingfisher, 1 month before Shadowfall. Your brother was our intelligence specialist." The screen displayed surveillance photos of a remote facility. Thermal imaging showing unusual energy signatures. Chemical analysis of atmospheric samples. "Standard border monitoring operation," Morgan continued, "until we detected radiation inconsistent with agricultural research of the facility's official purpose." Ryan studied the images with professional assessment. "What did you find?" "A next-generation chemical weapons delivery system violating 17 international treaties, being developed by American contractors for sale to non-state actors." Morgan swiped to the next image. Colonel Harrison meeting with unidentified men outside the facility perimeter. "My brother discovered this. Daniel documented everything. Created an encrypted intelligence package as insurance. The night before Shadowfall, he told me if anything happened, you would know the decryption key." Ryan's expression remained guarded, but something shifted in his eyes. What exactly did he say? His exact words. He said, "If this goes sideways, my brother knows where eagles sleep." The change was subtle, a momentary softening around Ryan's eyes, an almost imperceptible exhalation. Recognition. Confirmation. "When we were kids," Ryan said quietly, "we built a tree house in the woods behind our house. Daniel painted an eagle on the door, called it the Eagle's Nest, said it was where eagles went to sleep safe from the world." Morgan nodded. "That's the key, the location coordinates. Not coordinates, a date. July 17th, 1998. The day we finished building it." Ryan's voice carried the weight of memory. "Our address, followed by that date, would be his encryption key." Morgan made a note on her tablet. "With this, we can access everything Daniel discovered. Prove that Atlas Defense was developing illegal weapons, that Harrison and others betrayed your brother's team to protect their operation." Ryan's professional detachment wavered. "They sent you to die. All of you." "Yes." Morgan's voice remained steady, despite the emotion beneath. "Your brother saved my life twice that night, pushed me out of a sniper's line of fire, created a diversion so I could reach the extraction point." "How did you survive? Training, luck." Morgan's expression hardened. "And a promise I made to your brother as he lay dying, that I would expose the truth, that I would make it right." Ryan was silent for a long moment, processing everything. His tactical training would be screaming caution warning against trusting a disgraced officer blamed for his brother's death. But something deeper? Intuition, perhaps? Or the bond of brotherhood extending beyond death seemed to guide his decision. "What's your plan?" he finally asked. "Atlas is moving their weapon today, 1800 hours, earlier than planned." Ryan's eyebrows raised slightly. "Because of your shot yesterday?" "Exactly. They're accelerating everything. Harrison has deployed containment teams to hunt me." 4 unmarked SUVs arrived this afternoon, Ryan confirmed. Personnel with non-standard tactical gear, operating outside normal command structure. "Atlas contractors," Morgan explained. "Professional cleaners." "How do you intend to stop a weapons transfer protected by private military contractors and corrupted military personnel?" Morgan's smile was cold, determined. "By having people in the right places. General Davidson at SOCOM, Laura Mitchell accessing Atlas systems, Master Sergeant Cooper coordinating, and now you, inside Fort Bragg, close to Harrison." Ryan considered this network its strategic positioning. "You've spent 3 years building this. Every day since they murdered your brother and our team." Morgan's voice carried absolute conviction. "Every day since they stripped my honor and buried the truth." Ryan made his decision. "I'm in. For Daniel. For your team. For the truth." Morgan extended her hand, completing the alliance. "Welcome to Operation Redemption, Sergeant Carter." The mountain facility existed on no official maps. Nestled deep in the Appalachian Range, its access road appeared to lead to a private hunting reserve owned by a shell corporation. Satellite imagery showed nothing but undisturbed forest canopy, thanks to advanced camouflage techniques and substantial bribes to relevant oversight agencies. 300 feet beneath the mountain's surface, a state-of-the-art laboratory hummed with activity. White-coated scientists moved between workstations with urgent purpose. Armed security personnel maintained vigilant watch from discreet positions. At the center of the main chamber stood the weapon, outwardly unimpressive, resembling standard military transport containers. Its true nature lay in its contents. Aerosolized chemical compounds designed to incapacitate entire population centers without detectable traces or attributable signatures. Dr. Eleanor Voss, chief scientist of the project, monitored final preparations with clinical detachment. After 20 years developing conventional weapons for the Department of Defense, the Atlas project represented the pinnacle of her career, a weapons system that would transform modern warfare while making her extraordinarily wealthy. The communication system chimed. "Transport team ETA 30 minutes, a security officer reported. "Extraction schedule advanced by order of General Westfield." "Reason for acceleration?" Voss inquired, disliking disruptions to established protocols. "Need to know basis only, ma'am." Voss frowned but continued her preparations. The weapon's transport configuration required precise handling. Any deviation risked contamination or premature activation. As she completed final checks, Voss allowed herself a moment of reflection. The ethical considerations of her work had long since been rationalized away. National security, technological supremacy, the inevitable march of weapons development. Someone would create these systems eventually, better Americans than adversaries. Yet occasionally, in rare moments of clarity, Eleanor Voss recognized what she had become, not the medical researcher who had once sought to heal, but the architect of suffering on an unprecedented scale. Such thoughts were dangerous, unprofitable. She pushed them aside, focusing instead on the substantial offshore account that grew with each project milestone, on the recognition her work would eventually receive once declassified decades hence. The facility's alert system activated, proximity warnings indicating the transport team's arrival. Soon, her creation would leave this mountain laboratory for deployment in the field. What happened afterward was not her concern. Or so she told herself. In his private quarters at Special Operations Command, General William Davidson prepared for war. Not the conventional conflicts he had directed throughout his career, but a personal battle against corruption within the system he had served for 4 decades. Spread across his desk lay evidence accumulated over 3 years, financial transactions linking Atlas Defense to prohibited weapons research communication intercepts suggesting high-level cover-ups, personnel transfers, removing potential whistleblowers. Davidson had watched from the shadows as Morgan Reed was systematically destroyed. Her reputation shattered, her team's deaths blamed on her supposed negligence. He had recognized the pattern, having seen similar operations during the Cold War. The efficient elimination of inconvenient truths, the sacrifice of honorable soldiers to protect dishonorable secrets. He had done nothing then, a decision that haunted him daily. "Not this time," he murmured, securing documents in a specialized case. 3 years of careful maneuvering had positioned him perfectly. High enough in the command structure to access classified information, trusted enough to operate without constant surveillance, powerful enough to mobilize resources when the moment came. That moment had arrived. Davidson activated a secure communication system. "Activate Operation Safeguard," he ordered. "Authentication code Sierra Echo Victor Echo November." "Authentication confirmed," the response came. "Assets standing by. Mobilize teams 1 and 3. Coordinates to follow. Priority level Alpha." "Understood. Timeline: immediate deployment. Target in transit as of 1800 hours." Davidson ended the transmission knowing he had just crossed a line from which there was no return. He had effectively deployed special operations assets without proper authorization, circumventing normal command channels. Court-martial offense at minimum. Treason, potentially, depending on who controlled the narrative afterward. A soft tone indicated an incoming secure message. The communication was brief, encrypted using old Cold War protocols known to only a handful of aging operatives. "Eagle's Nest unlocked. Evidence secured." Davidson allowed himself a moment of satisfaction. Morgan Reed had accessed Daniel Carter's encrypted files. The final proof they needed was now in play. His secure phone vibrated, the direct line used only by his personal security detail. "Sir," his lead security officer reported, "we've detected unauthorized surveillance on your quarters. Internal system compromise." "Westfield," Davidson concluded, "sooner than expected. Recommended course of action. Maintain normal protocols. Allow them to believe their surveillance is undetected." "Sir, if they're monitoring this call—" "They're not," Davidson interrupted. "This line remains secure. Continue as planned. I depart in 15 minutes through secondary exit." As he ended the call, Davidson moved to a wall safe concealed behind a bookshelf. Inside lay contingency materials prepared for this exact scenario: alternate identification, non-traceable funds, weapons without serial numbers. He had served his country faithfully for 40 years, had followed orders without question, trusted the chain of command, believed in the fundamental integrity of the system. Today, he would break that system to save it. Master Sergeant William Cooper observed the mountain facility through high-powered optics, his experienced eye noting security patterns, personnel movements, potential vulnerabilities. Despite his 68 years, he moved through the rugged terrain with the quiet efficiency that had made him a legend among special operations communities. His satellite phone vibrated silently. "Cooper, secure," he answered. "Evidence confirmed." Morgan's voice came through. "Daniel Carter's encryption key worked. We have everything. Development records, financial transfers, communication logs. Complete confirmation of illegal chemical weapons production. Location of the weapon. Facility designate Blackstone, Appalachian Mountains, Western Quadrant. Satellite imagery shows increased activity consistent with transport preparation." Cooper adjusted his position slightly, maintaining visual coverage while minimizing exposure. "I have eyes on the facility now. Security heightened. Vehicle bay preparing for arrival." "Atlas transport team departed Fort Bragg at 1800 hours, Morgan continued. "Ryan confirms Harrison is personally accompanying the transfer." "Putting all his eggs in one basket," Cooper observed. "Desperate move." "They're scared. The impossible shot did exactly what we wanted. Forced them to accelerate, make mistakes." Cooper allowed himself a small smile. "Just like I taught you. Pressure creates openings." Davidson's teams, in position along likely transport routes, ready to intercept on confirmation. A brief silence, then Morgan's voice slightly softer. "This is it, Bill. 3 years. Everything we've worked for." "Stay focused," Cooper advised. "Westfield's survived this long by anticipating threats. He'll have contingencies. So do we." As the call ended, Cooper returned his attention to the facility. In the fading mountain light, vehicles began emerging from concealed garages, advanced security teams establishing the transport corridor. Standard protocol for high-value asset movement. Cooper had seen similar operations throughout his career, in Cold War Berlin, in Desert Storm, in countless classified missions across hostile territories. The methodical preparation, the layered security, the confidence that came from superior resources and training. That same confidence often created blind spots. Assumptions of invulnerability. Failure to consider unconventional threats. Cooper activated his tactical radio using frequencies unknown to standard military monitoring. "Overwatch to all positions. Transport preparations underway. Maintain status Alpha. Await execution order." Acknowledgements came from 4 separate positions surrounding the facility. Former special operators who had answered Cooper's call, men who had served under his command in various conflicts, who trusted his judgment implicitly, who understood the stakes of this unauthorized operation. As darkness settled over the mountains, William Cooper prepared for what might be his final mission. Not for country this time, but for something more fundamental. The truth that powerful men had tried to bury the justice that 5 dead operators deserved. And perhaps, though he would never admit it aloud, for redemption. For all the times he had followed orders without question. For all the operations where national security had justified morally questionable actions. For all the younger soldiers who had paid the price for decisions made by men in distant, comfortable offices. Tonight, that balance would be corrected. The Atlas Defense Transport Convoy moved with practiced precision through carefully selected routes. 2 advance vehicles preceded the main transport, unmarked SUVs containing security teams scanning for threats. The central vehicle, a specialized transport truck with reinforced compartments, carried the weapon itself along with key technical personnel. 2 follow vehicles provided rear security, maintaining communications with Atlas headquarters. Within the central transport, Colonel James Harrison sat opposite Dr. Eleanor Voss, both secured by tactical harnesses as the vehicle navigated winding mountain roads. Between them, the weapons containment unit hummed softly, environmental controls maintaining optimal stability for its volatile contents. Estimated arrival at Blackstone facility, Harrison inquired, checking his tactical watch. 43 minutes at current speed, the driver reported through the internal communication system. Harrison nodded, satisfied with the timeline. In less than an hour, the weapon would be secured within the mountain facility. From there, preparation for its first field deployment would begin, a demonstration for potential clients that would establish Atlas Defense as the preeminent supplier of next-generation warfare systems. The vehicle's secure communication system activated. Unidentified vehicle approaching from Southeast Access Road, the lead security team reported. Civilian pickup truck, single occupant. Maintain distance, Harrison ordered. Assess threat level. Roger. Approaching vehicle now. Harrison's instincts, honed through decades of combat operations, triggered warning signals. The mountain routes had been selected specifically for their isolation, their distance from civilian traffic patterns. An unidentified vehicle represented an anomaly. In Harrison's experience, anomalies during high-security operations rarely proved benign. The communication system crackled again. Lead vehicle disabled, taking fire from multiple positions. Harrison's training took over instantly. Defensive formation. Alpha Second Team advanced to support lead vehicle. Rear security. Establish perimeter. Dr. Voss's scientific detachment dissolved into visible fear. What's happening? Potential intercept team, Harrison replied tersely, unholstering his sidearm. Standard protocol. Transport security will handle it. But as reports flooded the communication system, precision fire disabling vehicle engines, tactical teams appearing from concealed positions along the roadside coordinated suppression of Atlas security personnel. Harrison recognized the truth. This was no random encounter, no opportunistic attack. The operation faced a carefully planned intercept by a professional team with advanced knowledge of their route, their timeline, and their security protocols. Morgan. He whispered the name itself, an acknowledgement of underestimation, of failure. The transport vehicle suddenly braked hard, throwing its occupants against their restraints. Through armored windows, Harrison observed the road ahead, blocked by felled trees, a classic ambush technique. "Reverse course immediately," he ordered. "Alternative route, Baker." "Negative," the driver responded, tension evident in his voice. "Rear access blocked as well. We're contained." But Harrison activated his personal communication device, a direct line to Atlas headquarters bypassing standard military channels. "Transport compromised. Intercept team has containment. Request immediate air support. The response came not from Atlas Command, but from an unexpected voice on the same secure frequency. Your air support has been grounded, Colonel Harrison. The calm, authoritative tone of General William Davidson, by direct order of Special Operations Command. Harrison's blood ran cold. Not just Morgan Reed then, not just a disgraced officer seeking revenge. This was something far more dangerous, an official operation with military backing. This is an Atlas Defense Secure Transport, Harrison responded, fighting to maintain composure. You have no jurisdiction or authority here, General. I have full authority over illegal chemical weapons being transported on American soil, Davidson countered, as well as the military personnel aiding in that transport. Outside tactical teams had established complete containment of the convoy. Harrison recognized their approach, methodical, professional, unmistakably military, rather than law enforcement. You have one opportunity, Colonel, Davidson continued. Surrender the weapon, and all personnel without resistance. Cooperate with the subsequent investigation. Harrison weighed his options, calculating survival probabilities with cold precision. Atlas protocols for compromise were clear. Protect the asset at all costs. Prevent capture. Eliminate witnesses if necessary. His gaze shifted to Dr. Voss, to the weapons containment unit, to the driver watching him expectantly through the internal mirror. Harrison had built his career on decisive action, on certainty in the face of chaos, on unwavering commitment to mission parameters. He made his decision. The silence within the transport vehicle stretched for 3 heartbeats, the exact time Harrison needed to evaluate and commit to his final contingency. His career had been built on calculated risks, on knowing when to fold and when to double down. This moment would define his legacy. Execute Protocol Obsidian. Harrison commanded, his tone carrying the weight of absolute authority, the voice that had sent men to their deaths across 4 continents. The driver's expression hardened with recognition. He pressed a concealed button beneath the steering column. Throughout the transport vehicle, specialized compartments unlocked, revealing tactical equipment far beyond standard security protocols. Dr. Voss watched with widening eyes. What are you doing? They have us surrounded. Protecting the asset, Harrison replied, retrieving an advanced tactical rifle from a hidden compartment. As per Atlas protocols. Outside, Davidson's intercept team maintained their containment tactically positioned around the convoy with disciplined precision. Their approach had been textbook, disabling vehicles without casualties, establishing clear lines of fire, presenting overwhelming force to encourage surrender. What they couldn't know was that Atlas had prepared extensively for this exact scenario. The transport vehicle wasn't merely armored, it was a mobile fortress designed specifically for high-risk extractions. Harrison activated a secondary communication system. Talon assets execute Obsidian. Authentication code Alpha 7 Delta 9. Across the forested mountain terrain, hidden positions activated. 6 concealed sniper nests, positioned days earlier along potential transport routes, powered up specialized targeting systems. 4 unmarked helicopters maintaining silent holding patterns beyond radar detection range initiated approach vectors. The balance of power was about to shift dramatically. Harrison turned to Dr. Voss. Prepare the weapon for emergency transport protocol. That's not possible, she protested. The stabilization system requires— Your concerns are noted, Doctor, Harrison interrupted coldly. But Atlas has invested too much to lose this asset. Prepare the system as ordered. Outside, Davidson's voice came through external speakers. Colonel Harrison, we have complete containment. Surrender now and prevent unnecessary casualties. Harrison smiled thinly. General Davidson, He responded through the vehicle's external communication system. "Perhaps you should check your perimeter." The first indication that something had changed came when two of Davidson's tactical team members dropped silently, taken down by suppressed sniper fire from distant positions. Simultaneously, the distinctive sound of approaching helicopters shattered the mountain quiet. "Air assets incoming," one of Davidson's team shouted over tactical radio. "4 bogies, fast approach." Inside the transport vehicle, Harrison activated the final contingency system, a specialized smoke deployment mechanism that would cover their escape. Not standard smoke grenades, but a proprietary compound that blocked thermal imaging and interfered with electronic targeting systems. "You've miscalculated, General," Harrison transmitted. "Atlas Defense protects its investments. Last chance to withdraw your forces." In the command vehicle positioned 200 meters from the containment zone, General William Davidson processed the rapidly deteriorating tactical situation. The unexpected sniper fire, the approaching helicopters, the advanced countermeasures emerging from the transport vehicle. "Team leaders adjust to contingency Bravo," Davidson ordered through his tactical communication system. "Air threat incoming. Maintain primary objective." Davidson had not survived 4 decades of military operations by failing to anticipate enemy capabilities. While Harrison's response exceeded initial estimates, contingency plans existed for precisely this scenario. "Overwatch, you are cleared. Hot," Davidson transmitted on a separate frequency. "Take down those helicopters." From concealed positions on surrounding ridgelines, surface-to-air missile systems activated, portable military-grade systems operated by Cooper's veteran team. 2 missiles streaked skyward, their guidance systems locked onto the approaching Atlas helicopters. The mountain battlefield erupted into chaos. Helicopters taking evasive maneuvers, ground teams exchanging fire with Atlas snipers, the transport vehicle attempting to break containment through the smokescreen. In the middle of this tactical chessboard, Morgan Reed moved with silent purpose through the forest undergrowth. While Davidson's official operation provided the visible threat, drawing Atlas resources and attention, Morgan had infiltrated the containment zone undetected. Her objective wasn't the weapon itself. It was Harrison. 3 years of preparation, of planning, of calculating this exact moment, all focused on the man who had betrayed her team, who had sacrificed 5 operators to protect his criminal enterprise, who had destroyed her reputation and buried the truth. Through her tactical scope, Morgan tracked the transport vehicle as it attempted to maneuver through the disabled convoy. Her positioning was perfect, concealed, elevated with clear firing lines to all potential escape routes. Harrison would have to emerge eventually. And when he did, Morgan would be waiting. Inside the transport vehicle, Harrison assessed their diminishing options. The tactical situation was deteriorating rapidly. 1 Atlas helicopter had already been shot down. Their sniper positions were being systematically neutralized. The escape route was effectively blocked. "Secondary extraction plan," he ordered the driver. "Mountain access point Theta." The driver nodded grimly. "Rough terrain, sir. No guarantee the vehicle will make it." "Better than surrender," Harrison replied, checking his weapon. "Proceed." The transport lurched forward, veering suddenly off the established road and crashing through the forest undergrowth. The specialized suspension system absorbed the initial impact, but the vehicle wasn't designed for this terrain. Every meter gained came at significant cost to the vehicle's integrity. Dr. Voss clutched the weapon's containment unit as the vehicle bounced violently. "This is insanity. The weapon's stabilization system can't withstand this treatment." Harrison ignored her protests, focusing instead on the tactical display, showing their pursuers reorganizing to intercept their new escape route. Davidson's team was good, adapting quickly, maintaining pressure, coordinating with precision that spoke of extensive special operations experience. But something else nagged at Harrison's tactical awareness, a secondary threat unaccounted for in the visible opposition forces. Years of combat instinct screamed warning. Morgan Reed was out there, waiting, watching. The transport vehicle crashed through a dense thicket, the armored chassis groaning under repeated impacts. Warning lights flashed across the control panel. Mechanical failure imminent. "We can't continue in the vehicle," Harrison decided. "Prepare for dismount. Secondary extraction team to converge on our GPS location." The driver nodded, transmitting the coordinates to remaining Atlas assets. The transport lurched to a stop in a small clearing partially concealed by overhanging trees. "Doctor, you'll come with me," Harrison ordered, securing tactical gear for a forest escape. "Bring only the weapons core component. We'll have to abandon the stabilization system." "That's not possible," Voss protested. "Without proper containment, the chemical agents could—" "Your objections are noted," Harrison interrupted coldly. "Your cooperation is required, one way or another." The implied threat silenced further protest. Voss reluctantly disconnected the weapons core, a surprisingly small container housing the delivery mechanism and concentrated chemical agents, securing it in a specialized transport case. "Driver, provide covering fire," Harrison ordered. "We move north toward extraction point Theta. 30 seconds." The driver nodded, moving to the vehicle's rear hatch, tactical rifle ready. Harrison secured the case containing the weapon core, then positioned himself for rapid departure. "On my mark," Harrison began. 3, 2. The driver's head suddenly jerked backward, his body collapsing in the vehicle doorway. A single shot perfectly placed. No sound of gunfire reached them. The work of a suppressed sniper rifle from significant distance. Harrison instantly dropped to the vehicle floor, pulling Voss down with him. "Sniper, stay down." In that moment, a voice crackled through the vehicle's communication system, a voice Harrison had hoped never to hear again. "Hello, Colonel," Morgan Reed said, her tone chillingly calm. "It's been 3 years. Time for a reunion." Harrison's tactical mind raced through options, calculating angles, estimating the sniper's position based on the killshot trajectory. "Lieutenant Reed," he responded, playing for time while adjusting his position away from potential sight lines. "I'm surprised you've aligned yourself with this operation. Attacking American military personnel carries severe consequences." "Interesting perspective from a man transporting illegal chemical weapons," Morgan replied. "But then, you've always been comfortable with hypocrisy." Harrison detected something in her voice. Not just anger or vengeance, but absolute certainty. The confidence of someone holding all the necessary cards. "What do you want, Lieutenant?" Harrison asked, though he already knew the answer. "Justice," Morgan stated simply. "For my team. For Operation Shadowfall. For 3 years of living with your lies." Harrison checked his tactical display. The remaining Atlas helicopter was still 8 minutes from their position. Davidson's ground forces were closing in rapidly from multiple directions. His options were narrowing by the second. "The truth rarely matters in our line of work, Lieutenant," Harrison said, continuing to maneuver toward a potentially protected exit point. "We both know that. Necessary sacrifices for greater objectives." "Spare me the rationalization," Morgan cut him off. "I've spent 3 years assembling every piece of evidence. Daniel Carter's encrypted intelligence package. Financial records linking you to Atlas. Communication logs ordering the ambush of my team." Harrison froze momentarily. Carter's encrypted files. The final piece he thought had been eliminated with the team. "You're outmatched, Colonel," Morgan continued. "Atlas headquarters is currently being raided by federal agents. Westfield is in custody. The weapon program is exposed. Your extraction team has been neutralized. For the first time, genuine uncertainty crept into Harrison's tactical calculations. If Morgan was telling the truth, if the operation against Atlas was this comprehensive, his remaining options were virtually non-existent. You have one choice, Morgan stated with cold finality. Surrender to General Davidson's team. Cooperate fully with the investigation. Perhaps avoid the death penalty. Dr. Voss looked at Harrison with growing horror, the full reality of their situation becoming clear. Colonel, we need to surrender. This is over. Harrison's mind continued calculating possibilities, escape scenarios, potential leverage. The weapon itself represented one final bargaining chip. A threat to deploy it could potentially secure their escape. As if reading his thoughts, Morgan's voice came through again. The weapon is worthless as leverage, Colonel. The delivery system requires specific electronic activation codes. Codes now locked by Atlas's security protocols following Westfield's arrest. Harrison's last hope collapsed. With methodical precision, Morgan Reed had dismantled every option, every contingency, every possible escape route. 3 years of patient planning had culminated in this perfect trap. You win, Lieutenant, Harrison finally conceded. I'll surrender to Davidson's team. No, Colonel, Morgan replied, her voice hardening. You surrender to me, face to face. Just us. After what you did to my team, you owe me that much. Harrison weighed this final demand, recognizing the personal element transcending the tactical operation. Morgan Reed wanted more than his capture. She wanted acknowledgement, confession, the validation of truth after years of being branded a traitor. Very well, Harrison agreed. How do you want to proceed? Exit the vehicle, hands visible. Walk 10 meters north to the large oak tree. I'll meet you there. Harrison turned to Dr. Voss. Stay here. When Davidson's team arrives, surrender immediately. Voss nodded numbly, her scientific detachment shattered by the violent reality surrounding her. Harrison carefully placed his primary weapon on the transport floor, retaining only his sidearm. Holstered, but accessible. Standard procedure when surrendering to maintain minimal dignity. He suspected Morgan would allow this small concession. I'm coming out, he announced through the communication system. Harrison emerged from the transport vehicle, hands raised to shoulder height, moving deliberately toward the designated oak tree. His eyes scanned the surrounding forest, seeking any trace of Morgan's position, finding none. The forest fell unnaturally silent. Even the distant sounds of Davidson's approaching forces seemed muted, as though the natural world itself recognized the gravity of this moment. That's far enough, Colonel. Morgan Reed emerged from the forest shadows like an apparition moving with the silent efficiency that had made her one of the military's elite operators. Her tactical gear showed signs of hard use, not the pristine equipment of official operations, but the weathered tools of someone who had lived rough for years. Her face had changed since Harrison had last seen her, harder, leaner, with eyes that held no trace of the young officer who had once served under his command. In her hands, she held a military-issue sidearm aimed with unwavering precision at Harrison's center mass. Lieutenant Reed, Harrison acknowledged, maintaining the formality of military protocol despite the circumstances. Or should I say the ghost of Shadowfall? No more ghosts, Colonel, Morgan replied. Just the living seeking justice for the dead. They stood 10 feet apart, former commander and subordinate mentor and protege betrayer and betrayed. The culmination of a 3-year journey compressed into this single confrontation. You've clearly gone to extraordinary lengths. Harrison observed his tactical mind still assessing, still calculating potential advantages. Quite impressive for a disgraced officer with no resources. You taught me well, Morgan replied with cold irony. Plan meticulously. Anticipate all variables. Strike when the enemy least expects it. Harrison nodded slightly, acknowledging the point. The impossible shot. Psychological warfare to destabilize your target. Another lesson applied effectively. Stop stalling, Colonel, Morgan stated flatly. Davidson's team will be here in minutes. Before they arrive, I want to hear you say it. Say what, Lieutenant? The truth. About Shadowfall. About why my team died. About the lies you told to protect yourself and Atlas. Harrison considered his options. Denial seemed pointless given the apparent comprehensiveness of Morgan's evidence. Perhaps cooperation offered the best remaining strategy for mitigating consequences. Very well, he conceded. Operation Shadowfall was compromised from the beginning. Your team's discovery during Kingfisher represented an existential threat to Atlas's weapons program. Westfield ordered elimination of all witnesses and evidence. Morgan's expression remained unchanged, but something shifted in her eyes, the validation of truth she had pursued for 3 years. You transmitted our operational plans, she stated. Insertion route, tactical approach, equipment loadout, everything the ambush team needed to eliminate us. Harrison nodded once. Yes, though I recommended capturing your team for interrogation regarding what evidence might exist elsewhere. Westfield insisted on complete elimination. And afterward, when I survived. A contingency we hadn't adequately prepared for, Harrison admitted. Your survival skills exceeded expectations. Your determination to reach the extraction point was impressive. So you destroyed my reputation instead, Morgan continued. Fabricated evidence of negligence. Made me responsible for my team's deaths. The most expedient solution, Harrison confirmed with clinical detachment. Your word against the entire chain of command. A disgraced officer's claims easily dismissed as psychological trauma or attempt to deflect blame. Morgan absorbed this confession, this final confirmation of everything she had worked to prove for 3 years. Her weapon remained steady, aimed at Harrison's chest. They were good soldiers, she said quietly. The best I've ever served with. They deserved better than betrayal by their own command. Harrison recognized the dangerous precipice they stood upon. Morgan Reed had orchestrated an extraordinary operation to capture him alive to extract confession. But the personal weight of confronting her team's betrayer might yet override tactical considerations. What happens now, Lieutenant? He asked carefully. As he studied her face, Harrison saw something he hadn't expected. Not the blind rage of vengeance, but something more complex, a calculated determination. Behind her eyes he glimpsed not just the skilled operator he had trained, but something of her father, the same moral clarity that had made John Reed both respected and dangerous. For a fleeting moment, Harrison felt an unfamiliar sensation, not fear of death, which he had faced countless times, but regret. Not for the weapon program, or even the betrayal of his oath, but for the waste of potential. Morgan Reed had been his finest student. In another reality, she might have been his legacy. Now you face justice, Morgan replied. Military tribunal, public testimony. The full truth about Atlas Shadowfall and your role in both. Harrison detected movement in his peripheral vision, Davidson's tactical team approaching through the forest. Their window of private confrontation was closing. And, if I refuse to testify, he challenged, making one final attempt to regain psychological advantage. Morgan's expression hardened. Then Daniel Carter's encrypted intelligence package becomes public. Your offshore accounts get exposed. Your communications with Westfield regarding the elimination of my team become front-page news. She stepped closer, her weapon unwavering. One way or another, Colonel, the truth comes out. Your choice is simply whether you go down in history as someone who eventually cooperated or as the officer who betrayed his own soldiers and then lacked the courage to admit it. Harrison recognized complete defeat, tactical, strategic, and moral. Morgan Reed had outmaneuvered him on every level. "General Davidson approaching," Morgan stated, noting the tactical team emerging from the forest perimeter. "Last chance, Colonel. Your decision." Harrison looked into the eyes of the officer whose life he had destroyed, whose team he had sacrificed, who had nevertheless outmaneuvered him through sheer determination and strategic brilliance. His decision was made. "I'll testify," he stated. "Full cooperation." Morgan nodded once, lowering her weapon slightly, as Davidson's team surrounded them, weapons trained on Harrison. "Colonel James Harrison," General Davidson announced formally, "you are under military arrest for treason, conspiracy, illegal weapons development, and the murder of 5 Special Operations personnel during Operation Shadowfall." As Davidson's team secured Harrison, Morgan stepped back, watching as the man who had betrayed her team was finally held accountable. 3 years of single-minded purpose of living in shadows of methodical planning, culminating in this moment of truth. General Davidson approached her, respect evident in his bearing. "Lieutenant Reed, or rather, Lieutenant Colonel Reed, according to the paperwork I filed this morning, restoring your rank with back pay and full honors." Morgan's expression betrayed momentary surprise, the first genuine emotion she had shown throughout the operation. "There's more," Davidson continued. "The Secretary of Defense has personally ordered all records regarding Shadowfall to be unsealed and corrected. Your team's sacrifice will be properly acknowledged. Their families will know the truth." Morgan absorbed this news with quiet intensity. "Thank you, General. That means more than any restoration of rank." Davidson nodded understanding. "We've secured the weapon. Dr. Voss is cooperating fully. Atlas headquarters has been seized by federal authorities. Westfield is in custody along with most of the senior leadership." "And the evidence?" Morgan asked. "Carter's files, the operational records. Being processed by military intelligence and the Justice Department," Davidson confirmed. "The case against Harrison, Westfield, and Atlas is airtight. Your team's sacrifice won't have been in vain." As Harrison was led away toward waiting vehicles, he turned back briefly, eyes meeting Morgan's across the clearing. "You won, Lieutenant," he acknowledged. "The impossible shot was just the beginning." Morgan watched silently as Harrison was escorted into custody, the culmination of her 3-year mission unfolding with methodical precision. Yet the expected sense of triumph remained elusive, tempered by the knowledge that victory couldn't restore what had been lost. 5 operators who would never return home. Families who had grieved without knowing the truth. 3 years of her own life consumed by single-minded pursuit of justice. The price of truth had been painfully high. Bill Cooper emerged from the forest perimeter, his weathered face showing both satisfaction and concern as he approached Morgan. "It's done," he stated, simply placing a supportive hand on her shoulder. "You kept your promise to them." Morgan nodded, her gaze still following the vehicles now departing with Harrison in custody. "What happens now, Bill?" The question encompassed more than the immediate tactical situation. For 3 years, Morgan Reed had existed solely for this mission, this purpose. With that purpose now fulfilled, a vast uncertainty yawned before her. "Now," Cooper replied with quiet understanding, "you begin again, whatever that means for you." Davidson rejoined them, having completed the secure transfer of Harrison to military custody. Lieutenant Colonel Reed, once the paperwork is processed, you'll have options. Reinstatement to active duty, honorable discharge with full benefits, whatever path you choose. Morgan considered these possibilities, a return to the military career that had once defined her existence, or a completely new direction. Both represented freedom from the single-minded purpose that had consumed her for 3 years. "I'll need time," she acknowledged, "to decide what comes next." "Of course," Davidson agreed. "But first, there are some people who've been waiting a long time to speak with you." He gestured toward an approaching vehicle, a standard military transport rather than a tactical unit. As it stopped nearby, the rear door opened to reveal 5 individuals stepping carefully into the mountain clearing. Morgan recognized them immediately, the families of her fallen team members. Daniel Carter's parents, Lisa Ramirez's husband, Michael Torres's father, Jason Walsh's wife and daughter, David Chen's brother. They approached hesitantly, uncertainty and emotion visible in their expressions. For 3 years, these families had lived with the official narrative that Morgan Reed's negligence had caused their loved ones' deaths. Now, confronted with the truth, with the officer who had spent 3 years seeking justice for their family members, they seemed uncertain how to proceed. Daniel Carter's mother stepped forward, first her eyes filled with tears, yet somehow resolute. "Lieutenant Reed," she began, voice trembling slightly, "Ryan told us everything. What really happened. What you've done to bring the truth to light." Morgan stood rigidly, emotionally unprepared for this encounter, despite 3 years of imagining this moment. "Mrs. Carter, The older woman didn't wait for Morgan to finish. She stepped forward and embraced her, a gesture so unexpected, so contrary to military protocol and Morgan's self-imposed emotional distance that for a moment she stood frozen in shock. "Thank you," Mrs. Carter whispered, "for not letting them bury the truth, for keeping your promise to our son." The emotional wall Morgan had maintained for 3 years, the necessary compartmentalization that had allowed her to function, to plan, to execute her mission, began to crack under the simple human connection of that embrace. One by one, the other family members approached, not with recrimination or lingering doubt, but with gratitude, with recognition of what Morgan had sacrificed to bring truth to light. Torres's father, a Desert Storm veteran himself, rendered a formal salute. "My son would be proud of what you've done, Lieutenant, of your loyalty to the team." Walsh's young daughter, no more than 7 years old, approached with innocent directness. "Mommy says you were Daddy's commander, that you made sure everyone knew he was a hero." Chen's brother offered a traditional Chinese respect bow. "Our family honors your perseverance, Lieutenant Reed, your dedication to justice for David and your team." Each interaction chipped away at the hardened tactical persona Morgan had cultivated through 3 years of single-minded purpose. Each human connection reconnected her to the world she had necessarily held at distance while pursuing her mission. Ryan Carter approached last, having accompanied the families from Fort Bragg. His resemblance to his older brother struck Morgan anew. The same determined set of jaw, the same evaluating intelligence in his eyes. "Lieutenant Colonel," he acknowledged formally, rendering a perfect salute. "Daniel always said you were the finest officer he'd ever served under. Now I understand why." Morgan returned the salute with equal formality. "Your brother saved my life, Sergeant Carter, twice during Shadowfall, and a third time by trusting me with his encrypted intelligence package." Ryan nodded, emotion briefly visible before military bearing reasserted itself. He'd be satisfied with how this turned out. Justice for the team, truth for the families. "And for you," Morgan asked, "what comes next?" Ryan considered the question seriously. "General Davidson has offered me a position with his command. Special Operations Planning. using what I've learned during all this. You'd be good at it, Morgan acknowledged, recognizing in Ryan the same tactical intelligence that had made his brother an exceptional operator. As the families and military personnel began organizing for departure, Cooper approached Morgan again, his weathered face bearing a rare smile. "Remember what I told you 3 years ago?" he asked, "when you showed up at my cabin determined to pursue justice regardless of cost." Morgan nodded. "You said I needed to decide what would come after. That vengeance alone wasn't enough purpose for a life." "And I was right," Cooper stated without arrogance. "You've achieved your mission, Morgan, kept your promise to your team. Now comes the harder part." "Living," Morgan concluded, understanding his meaning. "Exactly." Cooper gestured toward the gathering of military personnel families and support teams now preparing to depart the mountain clearing. "There's your start. People who know the truth, who respect what you've done, who might need what you have to offer." Morgan considered this perspective. The idea that her skills, her determination, her tactical brilliance might serve purposes beyond the single-minded mission that had consumed 3 years of her life. General Davidson approached, offering formal closure to the operation. "Lieutenant Colonel Reed Transport is ready when you are. We'll need your full debrief at Fort Bragg, followed by testimony for the ongoing investigation." Morgan nodded acknowledgement. "I'll provide whatever's needed, General." Davidson's expression softened slightly. "After that, as I mentioned, you'll have options. But if I may offer a personal perspective—" "Of course, sir. Special Operations Command could use someone with your particular skill set, your experience, your determination to uphold the true meaning of leave no one behind." Morgan hadn't considered this possibility, returning not just to military service, but to a position that might influence policy training operational standards, a position from which she might help prevent future shadow falls. "I'll consider it seriously, General," she replied, the first tentative step toward a future beyond her completed mission. As the mountain operation concluded, the weapons secured, Harrison in custody, evidence preserved, Morgan found herself standing once more before the transport vehicle that would carry her back to Fort Bragg, back to the beginning point of her 3-year journey. Cooper joined her for a final moment before departure. "You know," he observed quietly, "that shot at 3,500 meters was still damn impressive, even by my standards." Morgan allowed herself a small smile, perhaps the first genuine one in 3 years. "I had a good teacher." "The best," Cooper agreed without false modesty. "But the student surpassed the master long ago." As Morgan prepared to board the transport, Cooper placed a hand on her shoulder. "Your father would be proud, Morgan, not just of your skills, of your integrity, your determination to do right by your team no matter the cost." The mention of her father, Lieutenant Colonel John Reed, killed during Operation Desert Storm, struck Morgan with unexpected emotional force. Throughout her military career, throughout the Shadowfall investigation, throughout her 3-year mission for justice, her father's legacy had been a guiding principle, a standard to uphold. A memory surfaced, one she hadn't allowed herself to revisit in years. Her father kneeling before her, just 7 years old the night before his final deployment. His hands steady on her small shoulders, his voice gentle but resolute. "Morgan," he had said, "in this life there are 2 things that no one can take from you unless you let them: your integrity and your courage. Remember that when things get hard. Remember that truth and honor matter more than anything else." She had carried those words through every challenge, every victory, every mission. They had sustained her when all else was stripped away. "Thank you, Bill," she said simply, the words conveying deeper meaning than their simplicity suggested. Cooper nodded, understanding. "See you back at Fort Bragg. We've got testimony to give." truth to establish, and then perhaps new missions to consider. 1 year later, the newly established Shadowfall Memorial Training Center at Fort Bragg stood as visible testament to truth finally acknowledged. Where once Colonel James Harrison had trained snipers with tactics compromised by ego and personal agenda, now a comprehensive program emphasized not just technical excellence, but ethical responsibility. Lieutenant Colonel Morgan Reed moved with quiet authority through the training facility, observing as a new class of elite operators practiced advanced marksmanship under the watchful guidance of Master Sergeant Ryan Carter. The outdoor range featured 5 specialized long-distance targets, each bearing the name of a Shadowfall operator, a daily reminder of the program's foundation in both tactical excellence and unwavering integrity. In the year since Harrison's arrest and conviction, Morgan had rebuilt more than just her military career. She had reconstructed a life previously consumed by single-minded purpose, finding new meaning in developing the next generation of special operators, in ensuring that the lessons of Shadowfall, both tactical and ethical, shaped military doctrine moving forward. General Davidson approached having just completed a briefing with senior Pentagon officials regarding the training program's exceptional results. "Impressive work, Colonel," he observed, surveying the training in progress. "The Shadowfall standards are being adopted across all special operations training programs." Morgan nodded acknowledgement. "The technical aspects are important, but the ethical foundation matters more. Ensuring operators understand that loyalty flows in all directions, command to team as much as team to command." A lesson some of us learned too late, Davidson acknowledged with regret for his own delayed intervention in the Shadowfall cover-up. They watched as Ryan Carter demonstrated a particularly challenging shooting position for the trainees, his instruction style reflecting both technical precision and his brother's remembered influence. "The Carter Scholarship Program is gaining significant attention," Davidson noted, referring to the foundation established in Daniel Carter's memory to support families of fallen operators. 15 children of fallen operators attending college this year on full scholarships. "Daniel would approve," Morgan replied. Education was important to him. He was taking night classes himself, working toward a degree in international relations. As they observed the training, a young lieutenant approached with evident hesitation. "Excuse me, Colonel Reed." The trainees were wondering about the impossible shot. Morgan raised an eyebrow questioningly. "The 3,500-meter shot that started everything," the lieutenant clarified. "They're debating whether it was skill or calculation, whether anyone could replicate it consistently." Morgan considered the question thoughtfully. The shot that had announced her return, that had triggered Harrison's downfall, that had initiated the cascade of events leading to justice for her team, had become something of a legend among special operations communities. "Bring your trainees to the Memorial Range at 1800 hours, she decided. "Master Sergeant Carter and I will provide a demonstration." The lieutenant departed eagerly, and Davidson smiled with knowing anticipation. "Planning to show them how it's done." "Planning to show them what's possible," Morgan corrected, "with proper training, proper equipment, and proper purpose." Later that evening, as sunset painted Fort Bragg's training grounds in amber and gold, Morgan Reed stood before the assembled trainees. Behind her, 5 steel targets gleamed at progressive distances, the farthest at the legendary 3,500 meters that had once been described as impossible. Master Sergeant Ryan Carter stood beside her, having prepared the demonstration with meticulous attention to detail. Bill Cooper observed from a nearby position, his weathered face bearing the satisfaction of a mentor whose student had fulfilled every promise. Marksmanship at extreme distances isn't about natural talent, Morgan began addressing the assembled operators in training. It's about preparation, calculation, discipline. She moved to the shooting position where a custom rifle awaited, similar to the one she had used 3 years earlier for the shot that had announced her return. Every variable must be accounted for. She continued adjusting her position with methodical precision. Wind velocity at multiple elevations, temperature, barometric pressure, humidity, the Coriolis effect from Earth's rotation, the spin drift of the bullet itself. The trainees watched with intense focus as Morgan settled into position, her movements demonstrating the perfect integration of technical skill and physical discipline. But beyond all technical considerations, she added her voice, carrying across the attentive audience, the most important factor is purpose. Why you take the shot, what truth you serve, what promise you keep. Morgan Reed looked downrange toward the 300 meters. The distance once declared impossible by James Harrison, the shot that had initiated her journey back from exile, the beginning of justice for her fallen team. With perfect form, absolute focus, and unwavering purpose, she squeezed the trigger. 3 seconds later, as the sound of the shot still echoed across the training ground, the distant target shattered into fragments. Not impossible, after all. Not with proper training, proper equipment, and most importantly, proper purpose. As the trainees erupted in amazed reaction, Morgan stood and turned to face them. Her expression conveyed not triumph or satisfaction, but the solemn responsibility of her position, of the legacy she now protected and extended. "Remember this," she stated, her voice carrying natural authority. "Technical excellence matters. Tactical proficiency matters. But most critical of all is the integrity you bring to your mission, the truth you uphold, the promises you keep." She gestured toward the 5 memorial targets, each bearing the name of a Shadowfall operator. These officers died because someone in command betrayed those principles. Their sacrifice reminds us daily that our duty extends in all directions, to mission, to country, and to each other. As the demonstration concluded, Morgan walked alongside Ryan Carter toward the memorial stones established on a quiet hilltop overlooking the training grounds. Each evening, regardless of operational demands or training schedules, they completed this ritual, placing a rifle cartridge on each stone in silent tribute. "Daniel would be proud," Ryan observed quietly, "of what you've built here, of how you've honored the team." Morgan nodded, placing the final cartridge on Captain Daniel Carter's memorial stone. They deserved nothing less. The truth, recognition of their sacrifice, continuation of their legacy. "And you?" Ryan asked. "After everything, the disgrace, the years in exile, the mission for justice, are you satisfied with where you've landed?" Morgan considered the question seriously, looking out over the training facility where future generations of operators learned not just tactical skills, but ethical imperatives, where the lesson of Shadowfall shaped military doctrine and personal commitment alike. "Not satisfied," she decided finally. "Purposeful. There's a difference." Ryan nodded, understanding. "Always another mission, another standard to uphold, another impossible shot to make possible." "Exactly." Morgan turned from the memorial stones toward the training facility where her life's next chapter continued to unfold. There's work still to do. The impossible shot had been just the beginning. The true impact, the lasting legacy, would be measured in the operators trained under Shadowfall standards in missions conducted with both tactical excellence and ethical integrity, in promises kept regardless of cost. Lieutenant Colonel Morgan Reed had once been a ghost. Disgraced, exiled, presumed destroyed by powers beyond her control. Now she stood in the light. Her truth acknowledged, her purpose restored and expanded. The impossible made possible through determination calculation, and unwavering commitment to what mattered most: truth, justice, and the sacred promise that no one would be left behind. Not in battle, not in memory, not in legacy. The promise she had kept, the standard she would maintain, the impossible shot that had started everything, and the countless shots yet to come.